everybody. I am on our whitehouse.gov national page describing all of our recent presidential actions. And I think this one in particular is way too important and significant for us to ignore. So I wanted to just show you some of the points in it. And I would love if we could have an open and respectful and honest discussion about the document because it truly is kind of interesting, or actually extremely interesting. So, Trump and many Republicans and more conservative people, and certainly religious people, are opposed to so-called ideologues who deny the biological reality of sex and are using other means such as civil rights laws or gender equality laws to accept the cross-gender definition of people who are transgender. This particular executive order doesn't say anything about intersex people, but it repeatedly suggests that men are self-identifying as women and claiming to be transgender so that they can get into intimate single-sex spaces. So men are trying to get into women's domestic abuse shelters, trying to get into women's workplace showers, and of course, trying to get into women's bathrooms. And the president explains later that this is very dangerous for women. Efforts to eradicate the biological reality of sex fundamentally attack women, which I think is an interesting statement of women's rights. So part of the reason that Trump identifies an issue with gender and needs to create a term sex that only means biological sex is because there are supposed to be sex-based opportunities and laws that will protect women from something like having to operate radioactive equipment during pregnancy. I can't really think of a lot of others. But that would be one example. And of course, there are laws that you're supposed to go in the appropriate bathroom, shower, or domestic violence shelter. So the definitions are very clear in this document. Sex is your immutable biological classification as either male or female. Sex does not include the concept, is not a synonym for gender identity. I stand behind that. Women, girls, men, man, boys shall refer to female or male. And female, I love this definition actually, means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell, also known as the egg or the ovum. Male means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the small reproductive cell, which we could also call a sperm, spermatozoa, Y chromosome. Gender ideology replaces the biological category of sex with an ever-shifting concept of self-assessed gender identity, permitting the false claim that males can identify as and thus become women, and vice versa, and requiring all institutions to regard this false claim as true. Gender ideology includes the idea that there is a vast spectrum of genders that are disconnected from one's sex. They don't necessarily have to be disconnected from your sex, by the way, but for some people they are. And I do still think there's a vast spectrum of genders. So supposedly gender ideology diminishes sex as an identifiable or useful category, which I don't think it does, but I think gender ideology wants to look at intersex, male, female, and different variations. Maintains that it's possible for a person to be born in the wrong body. And I don't know if people are born in the wrong body. It's not my personal experience, but when someone speaks of their identity and how they will live, I just go with it. I'm not worried that somebody's going to come into the bathroom and pretending to be a trans woman just so they can peek at me or something. That I just don't understand that fear. And then these these definitions of gender identity, a fully internal and subjective sense of self, that is not gender ideology whatsoever. The social construction of gender doesn't have anything to do with your internal self or your subjective meaning only what you think of yourself. It's all of society. It's how we understand what it means to be male or female. So that's not necessarily really accurate. And then in this section, recognizing women are biologically distinct from men, and there's going to be some clear guidance coming forward explaining that. I'm not really excited about that because I think we know that women tend to be biologically distinct from men in a variety of ways, but biology often gets kind of crossed into intellect and brain and abilities and talents, so it makes me a little nervous. Also, yes, women can have babies. Super important, incredible, amazing thing. Men can't whatsoever. But I don't want my identity to be defined as a baby maker because I do other stuff. I mean, motherhood is incredibly important, but the amazing thing for me personally about being a woman is I can be a mother and I can be a whole bunch of other things too. So you can look over this executive order. I'll put the link in it, but federal employees have to use the term sex and not gender in all federal policies and documents. And there has to be kind of a scrubbing of the word gender from all public documents. There also can't be federal funds to promote gender ideology. Now, we have a federal grant and a person at Upstate her grant is to help prevent intimate partner violence and violence against women. The funds have been frozen for this person's work for her job. Her goal, her job, her purpose is to decrease the prevalence and the big problem of violence against women in South Carolina. But since that is the gender ideology, because men and women are biologically different, but men aren't more aggressive or violent, and women aren't more passive or victim-like, I don't know, just kind of thinking off the top of my head here, we can't have federal funds to protect women from domestic violence. It is a fact that funds have been frozen for protection and violence against women. So there's more evidence, there's more emphasis here on public bathrooms and showers. But like I said, I'll post this link. This is directly from the White House. And I encourage you to think about this when you write your gender papers because it's current and it's incredibly important. And maybe we can chat about it in discussions too. Have a great week.